We're going to replace 3 resistors in the circuit drawn below with one single one, and we want to know what that resistance would have to be. Now, very important that we recognize what type of circuit that is. You see the current leaving the battery and it reaches a junction, and part of the current will go through the 1 ohm resistor, part of it will continue down where it reaches another junction and the current splits up again, where a portion of that current will go down through the 2 and then continues on and goes through the 3. Because these resistors are said to be across one another, in other words, the top ends of all those resistors are joined together, as are the bottoms, we say that's a parallel circuit. And to find the equivalent resistance in parallel is a little more complicated than series. The formula is 1 over R parallel is 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2 plus 1 over R3. And of course, as soon as you start dealing with fractions, you've got common denominators and things to consider. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. Once by hand, and then we're going to not do it by hand anymore. We're going to show you how to use your calculators properly. So we're trying to find RP, the overall equivalent parallel resistance. So it doesn't matter which one's R1, R2, or R3. So let's put in the values. So I've got 1 over 1. Now I'm not going to put the units in just so we can watch this fraction play out. Plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over R3, which is 3 ohms. Now, in order to add fractions together, you need a common denominator. And if you look carefully, that common denominator is going to be 6. So my first fraction, I would multiply top and bottom by 6. And I get 6 over 6. 6 over 6 is equivalent to 1 over 1. 1/2 will be equivalent to 3 over 6, right? Multiply top and bottom by 3. And then for this last fraction, if I want to get a denominator of 6, I multiply top and bottom by 2. So the last one becomes 2 over 6. Now I've got a common denominator of 6. So the whole thing is going to be over 6, and we simply add the top together. So it's going to be 6 plus 3 plus 2. So 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11. And I get 11 over 6. Now, the tricky thing is, if you'll notice, that's not my answer. That's 1 over my answer. So let me write that again over here. 1 over R parallel ends up being 11 over 6. Now, technically, if I want to get R parallel, I've got to multiply both sides by R parallel and then get rid of this 6 and rid of the 11. So it's like cross multiplying. I'll do it in full here. Multiply both sides by RP. So they cancel. Now I'm going to put this on the left. Now I get RP times 11 over 6. And you'll notice what was over here, RP divided by RP simply becomes 1. Now I can get rid of the 11 and the 6. So multiply both sides by 6. And they cancel on the left. And then divide both sides by 11. And I end up getting my parallel resistance is 6 over 11 ohms. And 6 over 11 is 0.55 ohms. Now, one thing I just want to point out, if I go back to this stage, 1 over RP is 11 over 6. So notice my final answer, RP, I just flipped this. That becomes 6 over 11. So now let me show you the easy way using your calculator. So I'll do it in blue. Now somewhere on your calculator is an inverse button, which automatically flips things to be 1 over. So for example, on my calculator, my inverse button looks like this. It's a button on the calculator that has x to the minus 1. So I got a little button that looks like that. Sometimes it's a second function. So you're going to look for that, or it could be 1 over x. One of those 2 buttons will exist on your calculator. It might be a second function. So now I can just use my calculator to do this math that's in this step right here. So I would simply enter. Now remember, we're trying to find 1 over R parallel. On my calculator, I look at only the denominator. So my first denominator is 1. But I don't want 1. I want 1 over 1. So I hit that button, x to the minus 1. I'll do it in pink here. So this pink represents the calculator button. Plus, Now look at the next denominator. It's 2. Hit 2, and then find that calculator button. X to the minus 1. That returns 1 over 2 when you hit that button on your calculator. Plus 3. But again, we have to flip it. So on my calculator, hit x to the minus 1 again. Now when you do that, and I'll do it right now, I get 1, x to the minus 1, plus 2, x to the minus 1, plus 3, x to the minus 1, equals. I get, on my calculator, when I get rid of all the decimals, I get 1.83 repeating, 1.83. Now, that's not the answer we're looking for, is it? We know the answer is supposed to be 0.55 ohms. But remember, that's 1 over my answer. So what do we have to do? Well, remember, 1 over RP was 11 over 6. RP was 6 over 11. So you can use that button one more time. Just flip the whole thing over again. Take your 1.83, it's still on the screen, and just hit that x to the minus 1 button, and that just inverts it. So instead of being 11 over 6, it becomes 6 over 11. And when you hit that final button the last time, you will get your answer. You get 0.55 ohms.